A little history for you here. On May 9th, 1914, pretty much exactly 108 years ago, President Woodrow Wilson issued a presidential proclamation that stated, whereas by a joint resolution approved May 8th, 1914, designating the second Sunday in May as Mother's Day and for other purposes, the President is authorized and requested to offer proclamation calling upon the government officials to display the United States flag on all government buildings, and the people of the United States to display flags on their homes or other suitable places on the second Sunday in May as a public expression of our love and reverence for the mothers of our country. Thus, Mother's Day was born. And 6 years later, you could send your mother a Hallmark card. Let's step back a little bit further to the year 1908, when a young woman named Anna Jarvis arranged to have 500 white carnations sent to Andrews Methodist Episcopal Church in Grafton, West Virginia, her hometown, on Sunday, May 10th, to honor her mother. Anna Jarvis held a celebration in Philadelphia, where she lived at that time and the same day. Some believe this to be the actual first Mother's Day celebration in the United States. It may or may not have been. Anna herself may have gotten the idea from her social activist mother when in 1876 or 1878, sources conflict on the exact year, she overheard her mother recite the following prayer after teaching Sunday school in Grafton. I hope and pray that someone, sometime, will found a memorial Mother's Day commemorating her for the matchless service she renders to humanity in every field of life. Mrs. Jarvis had led a difficult life, losing 9 of her 13 children before they reached adulthood due to the extremely poor health conditions in Appalachia. She worked hard to establish programs and opportunities for the health and welfare of women and children beginning as early as 1858 with the creation of Mothers' Work Days in Appalachia. History is pretty certain that the elder Mrs. Jarvis did not see her prayer fulfilled. She died in 1905 with her daughter vowing to see her mother's wish come true, which she did after a strong letter-writing campaign to politicians and state officials. Celebrations honoring mothers were held yearly on the second Sunday of May in churches in 45 states, as well as Puerto Rico, Canada, and Mexico in the years between 1908 and 1914, when President Wilson finally made it official. Interestingly, Anna Jarvis never married nor became a mother herself, but followed in her mother's footsteps to create opportunities for other women and their children, as well as spending her own inheritance to promote the newly founded Mother's Day. It is somewhat a bittersweet twist of fate, though, that as time went by, Anna became less and less supportive of a National Mother's Day. She said it quickly became too commercialized, with florists and candy makers making profit off her idea. And she became rather bitter at the fact that she had spent so much of her fortune for it and never received credit. Now, 108 years after President Wilson's official proclamation, flowers, candy, and brunch seem to be the main ways we honor our mothers, and very few of us probably remember the name Anna Jarvis. Well, just like any good holiday, there are at least a half a dozen other Mother's Day origin stories. Celebrations honoring mothers can be traced back to ancient Greece and Roman times, when festivals were held in honor of the mother goddesses Rhea and Cybele. There is a Christian observance in parts of Europe called Mothering Sunday that dates back to the 16th century, when both Protestants and Catholics would visit the church of their baptism, their mother church, so to speak, on the 4th Sunday during Lent. Over time, giving gifts to mothers of children was added to Mothering Sunday, and eventually it became a similar observance to what we have here in the United States. And then there's the story of Julia Ward Howe. Julia Ward Howe began her life as the third child of a wealthy New York banker and a published poet. When Julia was at the very young age of 5, her mother died, leaving behind her husband Samuel with a total of 7 children. I can imagine that Samuel Ward could have sent the children off to various relatives, put them into schools, or hired several governesses to raise the kids, but he didn't. He took it upon himself to raise his own children, and his concern for their welfare became his top priority. As a result, Julia grew up to be an independently minded, outspoken, highly educated young woman with the confidence and strength to make her own way in a time when women had few options for such things. She became a writer, a political activist, a strong advocate for abolition and women's suffrage, and she became a Unitarian after befriending such UU ancestors as Theodore Parker, Ralph Waldo Emerson, William Ellery Channing, and Margaret Fuller. She survived an unhappy marriage to Samuel Howe, a man 20 years older than she, who did all he could to stop any intellectual or public passions his young wife had. Her will was stronger, however, and she managed to continue pursuits of philosophy as well as writing, even anonymously publishing a book of poetry that apparently was rather blatantly about her husband. She denied him the satisfaction of granting him a divorce because it would have meant she would be separated from her children, who would land in his custody, something she would never allow. In 1862, she penned the words to the Battle Hymn of the Republic and later managed to obtain publication. Needless to say, Samuel Howe was not happy about this. In 1870, she wrote her own Mother's Day proclamation from her home in Boston, which I feel needs to be heard in full to gain the full effect of what she was requesting. She wrote, "Arise then, women of this day. Arise, all women who have hearts, whether our baptism be that of water or of fears. Say firmly, we will not have great questions decided by irrelevant agencies. Our husbands shall not come to us, reeking with carnage, for caresses and applause. Our sons shall not be taken from us to unlearn all that we have been able to teach them of charity, mercy, and patience. We women of one country will be too tender of those of another country to allow sons to be trained to injure theirs. From the bosom of the devastated earth, a voice goes up with our own. It says, 'Disarm, disarm. The sword of murder is not the balance of justice. Blood does not wipe our dishonor, nor violence indicate possession. As men have forsaken the plow and the anvil for the summons of war, let women now leave all that may be left of home for a great and earnest day of council. Let them meet first as women to bewail and commemorate the dead.'" That's okay. "Let them solemnly take counsel with each other as to the means whereby the great human family can live in peace, each bearing after their own time the sacred impress, not of Caesar, but of God. In the name of womanhood and of humanity, I earnestly ask that a general Congress of women without limit of nationality may be appointed and held at some place deemed most convenient and at the earliest period consistent with its objects, to promote the alliance of the different nationalities, the amicable settlement of international questions, the great and general interest of peace." Signed, Julia Ward Howe, 1870, Boston, Massachusetts. Pretty strong. If we look closely at the three stories of how Mother's Day began here in the US, the idea of mothering is exactly what Mrs. Ann Jarvis, her daughter Anna, and Julia Ward Howe were seeking. A global, social justice-oriented way of mothering and taking care of others, whether or not you yourself have children. Yet I find it gets much more interesting. Julia Ward Howe did not use the word Mother's Day in her proclamation, but Mrs. Jarvis and her daughter Anna both did, as did others who claimed the day as their idea that I didn't talk about. The one similarity most of them had was how they spelled Mother's Day. Changing the spelling and the punctuation changes the meaning entirely. We generally will see Mother's Day spelled with an apostrophe, MOTHER''S. The originators of the idea left out the apostrophe. Suddenly, in celebrating Mother's Day, as in the possessive use of this day as for my mother, we have Mother's Day, a pluralizing of the word mother, meant to embrace any and all who engage in the act of mothering. Interesting thought. So let's fast forward to the present, 2022. And today is Mother's Day, with the apostrophe. And today will be a day of flowers, cards, perhaps lunch or brunch, presents, time with your mother, time apart from your mother. And for a great many people, a day that they'd rather avoid because of the all too painful reminder of children who were lost too soon, children they could never have, a child they gave away, the mother they never knew, or a mother they perhaps do not wish to know. The sorrows so many feel on this day become lost among the joyful messages that this day is full of sunshine and pretty flowers. Mother's Day has long been recognized with the act of so-called traditional motherhood. I ask you, though, has motherhood ever been traditional? There is this lingering image of a non-existent time when mothers were the dutiful housewife who cooked 3 enormous meals a day, cleaned the already spotless house, raised 2 children, 1 boy and 1 girl, of course, baked cookies and cakes, did the shopping, walked the dog, all while keeping her hair in place, her dress because pants were a no-no, wrinkle-free, and somehow remaining completely unstressed by any of it. This image really is the anti-traditional act of mothering. While motherhood is the state of being a mother, mothering is the act of being a mother. Mothering can be a joy, but it can also be messy. Mothering is anything but easy, and mothering is not restricted to the traditional idea of mothers being women only. Earlier, you heard a reading written by Unitarian Universalist Katie Lee Crane. She wrote, "Every year when Mother's Day rolls around, I wish there were just a little less hype about traditional motherhood and a little more acknowledgement of not-so-traditional mothers in our midst. People who come in all colors, shapes, sizes, gender, and ages. And more than anything, I wish there were a lot more empathy for those who suffer because mothers are being honored and they don't fit in quite the same wonderful way." How is so-called non-traditional mothering honored? Let's think about greeting cards. I admit that I've not purchased a greeting card in quite a while, so I'm not entirely up to speed on who the Mother's Day cards are targeting. I know that there will be cards for mothers, daughters, and grandmothers, but are there cards for families with 2 mothers, for single mothers, for mothers who have lost children, for mothers who cannot have children? Are there cards for birth mothers, adoptive mothers, or mothers who chose not to be mothers? What about the mothers who are male? Single fathers who are also mothers, 2 mothering fathers, gay or transgendered mothers, mothers of furry or fuzzy pets. The act of mothering is not restricted to women who have given birth. It is a genderless, sexless act of deeply caring and having deep concern for the welfare of others. It is taking action in order to make sure that others that they care for are okay. Mothering is Mrs. Jarvis in the 1850s, so concerned that the women and children in Appalachian, West Virginia have good food and health care, so they do not meet the same fate the 9 children she lost did. Mothering is Mr. Samuel Ward, who took it upon himself to be mother and father to his children and raise them with care and strength to thrive. It is the mother who works 3 jobs so her children have food to eat. Mothering is seeing the plight of war and offering shelter to refugees. Mothering is the mother who gives her child up for adoption, and mothering is the one who adopts that child. Mothering is about the care of humanity. As Julia Wardhoe wrote about mothers, let them then solemnly take counsel with each other as to the means whereby the great human family can live in peace. And as Katie Lee Crane wrote, let us honor them all on this day. Women who conceived, women who bore, women who reared, women who lost, women who let go, women who made different choices, and people of any gender who mother. It is honoring both the joys and sorrows that this day brings. The idea of mothering even bypasses humanity and embraces the entirety of life. The other creatures that walk this planet also engage in the act of mothering. Some are single parents, while others mothers as part of a larger clan. They experience the joy of life and the sorrow of loss. It is also no surprise that we call this planet we live on our Earth Mother. We are mothered by the very life that is surrounding us. We live and breathe it. It is our very life source. What grows here feeds and nurtures us. The waters keep us alive, and we have the great responsibility to be mother to our own Earth Mother. So short of making my own proclamation about a sweeping change that needs to happen on Mother's Day, I'll just say to make sure we embrace and hold all of it. Let us have Mother's Day with and without the apostrophe. Let us honor and celebrate our own mothers with flowers, cards, candy, and brunch if that's what we choose to do. But we should honor them each day, every day. So we don't really need a day set aside to remember to do that. While we are honoring our own mothers, let us also remember the reasons why a day set aside for mothers was so important. Let us honor that this day to ensure all of humanity is taken care of. Let us remember how to love one another and to hold one another safe in a world that often feels anything but safe. Let us honor and remember those who take care of us by taking care of them. Let us remember and honor all of the female, male, lesbian, gay, transgendered, queer, intersex, and gender fluid, heterosexual, non-human, and carbon-based planets, all of us, as we all engage in the act of mothering with one another. And I'm going to do something a little bit different. Instead of a discussion, we have a little mothering ritual that Kari is going to introduce.
So instead of a discussion this morning, we'd like to share with you a Mother's Day ritual or a mothering ritual created by retired Unitarian Universalist minister Barbara Childs. In this ritual, it's a way to honor those who have guided and mothered us throughout our lives and who we in turn guide and mother throughout their lives. First, let's honor those who have mothered us. Barbara Child writes, "I don't know about you, but I'm a little bit skittish about this holiday that seems to be oriented with the greeting card people. That's not true. In fact, Mother's Day. Let me start over. I'm a little bit skittish about a holiday that seems to be originated with the greeting card people. That's not true. In fact, of Mother's Day. The fact is that back in the 18th century in England, for instance, people celebrated what they called Mothering Sunday, taking particular cakes, a gingerbread man, to their mothers and seeking their blessing. Still today, Hallmark and Company have a way of imposing on us a whole constellation of feelings that may or may not relate to our own experiences and the feelings that follow with them. Some of us greet this day with great joy as a time to honor our mothers who have been at our sides, or at least in no further away than sorry, my brain doesn't want to work this morning. Those who've been at our sides and no further away than a telephone call. Some of us have lost our mothers along the way, and long ago, that grief has been transformed into quiet, joyful memories that warm our aging hearts. But some of us have encountered this day with more sorrow than joy. Some have so newly lost their mothers that the wounds are still raw. Some know that they are on the brink of loss. And for some, this day produces unsought reminders of a mothering that was for them was never there. Their relationship with their mother having been severed in anger or wrung out through the years of painful and torturing disagreements and misunderstandings. Some of us know little or even nothing about our birth mothers, having grown up in another's care. So when Hallmark people shout into the deepest recesses of our willing or unwilling ears that now is a time to honor our mothers, it is in no way that we don't all respond in the same way. There's no wonder why we don't respond all in the same way. Yet, we have all been mothered by someone at some time. Yes, of course, perhaps by a woman who brought us forth into the world, but perhaps what we remember of our mothering is by another, by a grandparent, an aunt, or an uncle, perhaps. Yes, men can be mothers too. And we can love and give and teach by modeling how to be in this world. They can lift us up when we are beaten down. They can hold us when some monsters are threatening. They can wash our bloodied knees and raise our spirits. Maybe the mothering that comes to mind this morning was a teacher or a friend. I invite you now to take a moment to remember someone who has mothered you throughout your life, to hold them and honor them in love. Now, because speaking our words of remembering is so powerful, I invite you to share with each other and here and type into the chat box someone who you are remembering, or raise your hand to speak aloud. We'll pass the mic here or call on you online.
My name is Marty, and my mother used to tell me about the importance of Mother's Day because she remembered when it was first made a holiday, an important day. My mother was born in 1895, so in those early 1900s, she was well aware of things.
Thank you.
My little sister just texted me something that I thought was kind of funny. She says, you spend the first 3 years teaching your kids to walk and talk, and the next 15 telling them to sit down, shut up, and listen.
Hi, it's Lisa. I'm honoring today many people who have mothered me, but especially my own mother. She's on screen, Barb Myers. And I also honor my birth mother as well. Her name was Karen, and I honor both of them, one for giving me life and one for sustaining that life. Thank you.
My name is Polly. I'm thinking of a neighbor, Mrs. Coolingcamp. Yes, that was her name, Mrs. Coolingcamp. But opened her home to me, and I found a safe place to go many times when it wasn't safe at home. I will forever be grateful to her for that.
I'm Marie, and the first person I want to honor is my birth mother, Eva Mae Voigt Phillips, and she's been gone since 2003. She was just a loving, kind woman, and it was really cool because there were 6 of us, although she actually lost her first baby. But so the 6 of us, we all kind of like, Mom, you like me best, right? And she was so cool. She would say, I like you, Marie, because I like you, Marty, because my brother. We never knew, but we always say to ourselves, I know my mom liked me best. And then I want to say, I have a mother now. I've called her, my mom here at church, Marty Reckdahl. And it kind of was a joke at first, but I really feel like I have a mom here in a different way. And thank you, Marty.
I do have a recognition in the chat. Lynn says, I honor my mother, Dorothy Mulvaney, who was also my best friend. She has been gone for 10 years now, and I miss her every day. And then I have Lois.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Katie.
Lois is sharing, I am remembering my mother who loved me with all of her heart, even past the time when she could no longer remember I was her daughter. She still remembered I was someone she loved.
There's a second part to the honoring the mothering ritual, and it is to honor the mothering that we have done. So Barbara Child continued writing, Mother's Day calls up powerful feelings in us, also because of the vastly different experiences we have had as mothers ourselves, or as not being mothers. Some of us are happy mothers on this day with our children at our side, or calling to send us their love and good wishes. Some of us of any and all gender identities have never birthed a child. Some of us have never even once been pregnant, though we have longed to be. Some have miscarried in spite of all our best efforts to give birth. And for some, Mother's Day calls back to the front of the brain memories of letting go, of abortions or of children killed or dying long before their time, or of our children adopted by others or taken from us by others in or out of court, and our children estranged from us or for reasons we may never fully understand. Yet just as we have, sometimes by someone, been mothered, so have we all mothered, our own children or those of another. Even if we have never birthed a baby, we have birthed perhaps a book or a painting, a garden or a song. Somewhere, sometime, we have all sown seeds of gladness. So I invite you now to take a short time again to remember someone or something you have mothered. We'll take a short moment of silence for you to explore. And again, speaking our thoughts and feelings may make our ritual of remembering more powerful. I invite you now to share or either type in the chat who you are honoring or raise your hand to speak aloud. We'll pass the mic here or call on you online.
Hi, I'm honoring my two daughters, Kari, who lives in Australia, and Sonia, who lives in Detroit. And I got the most beautiful, wonderful Mother's Day card from Sonia. I'm sure Kari's will come too, but the mail is always so iffy from Australia. So, those are my daughters.
I'm Jamie, and I have mothered a student of mine who I'm still quite close to. And she has had to do a lot of mothering in her own family because her family is an immigrant family and her mother doesn't speak English. And I call her my daughter of social work. And she agrees with that.
Anyone online would like to share?
Janice.
I would like to honor both my daughter and son-in-law. And along with the struggles of being a regular mother to my daughter, I also sometimes struggle with how to be a good mother to my son-in-law. And today is a reminder to me that mothering, as has been said, is not just related to children that we birth or that we were birthed by, but to all the people in our lives that we've been able to listen to, give advice for, sometimes unwanted, and just be there for people.
Thank you, Janice. Those are beautiful words. Moment for anybody else online who might like to share.
I'm not seeing anything.
Okay, we do have Marie here.
I have two daughters. Bruce and I have two daughters. My older daughter, Jennifer, I am honoring her. I am also honoring my younger daughter, Elizabeth. They're both wonderful people. I want to say especially for Jennifer, she was 2.5 when her dad and I were divorced, and it was a very, very hard growing up for her. There were times I was wondering, would this child survive? And she did, and I have 2 beautiful grandchildren from her, but she went through a lot, and the fact that she is such a good mother today, I'm so proud of her.
Thank you. So what we have done here this morning is a rite of passage. We have looked back on our lives and paid attention to the mothering in them, the mothering we have received and the mothering we have given. Let us hold all this mothering in our hearts and souls, and perhaps even share what we did today with those that we thought about.